All right. Well, everyone, thank you for coming this morning. We would love to give you an update on the Bartolomeo, the Airbus Bartolomeo external platform. And what we're really trying to cover this morning is an update on a few areas that we've been working on. The first is we know that there's an oversubscription now with a lot of the NASA external payload facilities. And what we're looking at from a Bartolomeo platform is it is a new commercial platform, and there is availability on this platform. And a lot of work has been done recently to provide a roadmap from a traditional NASA FRAM-based external facility to this new commercial gold connector platform. And I believe Bill will be talking a little bit about that. Another main message that we're trying to get across is this is a cradle to grave offering, not only from sort of, pre-Bartolomeo testing, test bed type of activity, but also once you're done with your space qualification or your test using Bartolomeo, Airbus US has many other assets and satellites and facilities where you can then transition to an operational mode. So we truly are looking at from pre-test all the way through operational sustainability using Airbus assets. One interesting thing that we've been talking to many of you about is the Bartolomeo platform is also very much ready to operate now, whereas many of your new and upcoming and exciting new transportation systems, new satellites, new CLDs, you're not quite operational yet. And so Bartolomeo could be an excellent platform for your customers in the short term that would then transition to your facilities as you become operational. And then the last thing is we have, I believe, a few of the semiconductor experts here on this call. We, from a in-space manufacturing perspective, have been seriously looking at Bartolomeo as an offering for advanced material substrates for the semiconductor in-space manufacturing work. So we're happy to talk a little bit about that as well. So those are the main points we'd like to make today, as well as anything else that you guys have questions on. And now I would first like to, before I turn it over to Bill and Chris from Airbus Bartolomeo, introduce myself. I'm Cindy Buteau, and I am the founder and president of Space Commerce Matters. I founded Space Commerce Matters in 2018 after having been with the ISS National Lab since its inception in 2011, and have been working with Airbus hand in hand for the past several years on the exciting new developments that we're going to talk about today. So from here, I'd like to introduce both Bill Corley and Chris Cannell, the leadership of the U.S. Bartolomeo team, and over to you. And please, Chris and Bill, also give yourself a little bit of an introduction before before we start.
Sure, thank you. I'll go ahead and start. So I'm Chris Cannell. I'm the director of the Space Exploration Services for Airbus US here in the States. And one of our primary offerings right now is access to this Bartolomeo platform on the ISS, which Bill's going to go into a little more detail as to what the platform does, what its capabilities are, what the ConOps and access and methodology we use to host different payloads here a little bit. And Cindy, thank you for the intro on all of that, and thank you everybody for joining here today. I'll say a couple quick words on this. Just it's been kind of a long road to get Bartolomeo up and operating on the ISS. I mean, we have a background in Airbus of providing external payload capabilities going back, through the Space Lab days, the integrated cargo carriers on the shuttle, the ESP2 and 3 still on ISS, then working with some of our commercial, partners and friends, specifically NanoRacks, helping them with their external payload platform early in this, early in the 2011-12 timeframe, all leading towards this Bartolomeo external payload platform that Airbus has fully funded commercially here and installed with the help of CASIS, ISS National Lab, and NASA there on Space Station, because we saw this need, this one oversubscription that looked like it was coming in terms of capabilities on the space station, and also to be able to provide more opportunities and flexibility. So for me, I'd ask that you, as we go through all this, keep options in mind. I think of this in terms of options. I think Bartolomeo is a very flexible platform, so we can provide viewing options: nadir, zenith, RAM, limited wake, and for single payloads, you can get multiple viewing opportunities in certain locations. We have sizing options from 3U up to 450 kilogram. Interface options. We have our standard Gold 2 connectors, and we have adapters to be able to accommodate FRAM-based payloads, or, I think it's really what the customers need. And same with contracting options, right? We have our standard B2B options. We go through CASIS implementation partner route. We have a NASA IDIQ contract for government payloads. So again, in my world, it's kind of flexibility and options. And sometimes we're asked, what does Bartolomeo do? And it's really it's y'all's. You really drive the answer to that question, right? I think we have a very good team that's very creative in figuring out how to accommodate different things, so it's as flexible as the demands might be. So that's my few opening comments. I'll hand it back over to Bill. And thank you again, Cindy.
All right. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Chris. Bill Corley here, Director of Business Development here at the Airbus US office in Houston. And I agree with Chris on many things. The flexibility of this platform is quite extensive. Let's just jump right into it and go to the next one. So right here we have the a picture of the ISS that everybody's familiar with. It's traveling out of the picture towards you as you look at it in the velocity vector. So on the little bubble on the left-hand side is the draws you to the Bartolomeo platform, and then down in the giving you a location. It's on the leading edge of the velocity vector of the station. So as Chris said, we've got great viewing, both RAM, nadir, and zenith, and then also there's just some nice, pretty pictures of the platform as it was being installed back in April of 2020. So what is Bartolomeo? As Chris has said, and we'll continue to dive into, it's a fully funded Airbus project that we saw a need with the lack of space on ISS for external platforms, external payloads, and so as part of their going into the commercialization of LEO, they sought to move into this world and as our first step into the commercialization portion. We have, like I said, and Chris said, we've got plenty of options, whether it's B2B or the ISS program office has a IDIQ contract already open and exercisable through all federal agencies. And then why Bartolomeo? We again, one of the things is flexibility that we keep talking about, fast, easy access to space. We've got a process down that, typically, and I'll talk later in another slide, but our standard templates, 12 months from a contract signing to flight is, but we've done shorter durations for some of these payloads, as little as 9 months, but that can get hairy, depends on the complexity and other things, other factors that help drive that with regard to the speed to getting your mission launched. One of the other benefits to this platform is that if you should choose, we have the option to bring your payload back. Next. And again, this is a depiction. These square boxes more depict the GEM airlock capabilities of up to roughly a meter cubed. So that's why they're those square boxes showing on each of the potential sites. We've got 8 sites with the possibility of daisy chaining. And then over on the left-hand side, you see the Argus adapter, where I kind of liken the full slot is like a single family dwelling, and the Argus multi-payload adapter is more like an apartment complex where you can have different sized payloads and accommodated there. So, again, we believe that we've got some great viewing, both nadir, zenith, and RAM. You can fly anything from 1U up to roughly a meter cubed, and a maximum mass on an individual slot of 450 kilograms. So, and then we have various power capabilities depending on this particular slots. Anywhere up to 800 watts is the high-powered slots that we do have. Currently we use the standard TDRS downlink through station, but come Q1 of 25, we plan to have the laser comm system in place that can deliver up to several terabytes of data a day down. And this gets back into the kind of the flow that we see and we've taken with customers that we meet with them, and once decide to move forward, sign a contract. It's typically 12 months from contract signature, and then we get you launched and manifested, launched, and then placed onto the platform. You operate for a year, and then again, if you so desire, after your year of operation, possibility of returning your payload home. And this is just a kind of a standard template. Again, I talked about the different slots, and then the daisy chaining. You can see 1A and 1B, where you can, if you have a very large payload, and we'll get into the sizes later, again in a little more detail in one of the next charts, but you can attach, daisy chain another payload into your first payload that attaches to the main structure of the Bartolomeo. Again, we have 8 full slots, and with the ability to daisy chain 4 others. And then our main connection is the standard Gold 2 connection that Oceaneering has developed, and that we have the passive side is already attached to the platform up on ISS now, and should you have the need for a full slot, then we give you a gold connector that you attach to your payload, which is the mechanical and electrical and the data interface with those blue buckets are really finite connectors that the robotic arm grapples there at the microconical top. On the left-hand side of the graph there, it just shows an example of various size payloads on an Argus payload adapter that can be, again, anywhere from 1U up to 200U, depending on the Argus configuration. And again, this chart kind of gets in a little more detail about the gold. Again, the passive side is attached currently to the platform, and you would attach your active side to your payload. And again, a max capability on this is 450 kilograms, which is pretty significant. Here we're showing a little bit more about the Argus multi-payload carrier. This is the avionics box shown here with no payloads on it. And this attaches again to the Jody in the GEM airlock and goes out with payloads attached. Your payload to be attached to one side or the other of this backbone that the crew would attach on orbit once launched.
Bill, we actually have a question right now. Could you provide 1 kilowatt of power if needed?
We'd have to look. It depends. You know, the standard is 800, but we might be able to work something. We'd have to take a little closer look at that, but we could certainly do that.
Say we have our electrical team slap our hand if we were to answer this one on the fly here, but it's something that could be looked at. And
again, this particular slide shows the various size configurations. Again, the Argus on the far left-hand side, what we call our full slot or single slot is the nominal. And then if you decided to daisy chain, this is the max size you could obtain, hanging off the Bartolomeo in the various configurations, power, mass, data. And as Chris mentioned, many of the current NASA payloads are all frame-based that are externally mounted for the most part. And we've developed a capability to interface the frame active side to a kit that we developed to attach to the Bartolomeo. So you can fly a frame-based payload. You know, if you've got a payload that's out there that is flown before or might be interested to make room for another frame-based payload, we could certainly move that payload over to the Bartolomeo so you could continue longer duration operations.
And I'll just
expand on that a little. Go ahead, Cindy.
No, go ahead, Chris. Go ahead, Chris. I've got a question after that.
Okay, no, you know, so on this one, there was a lot of discussions early on how can we fly frame-based payloads on Bartolomeo, and the issue had to do with interfacing to the launch vehicles, and there's no way to do that through the goals. And finally, we just said, well, we'll just interface the FRAM to our goals. So then at that point, any FRAM-based payload that's launching, or as Bill said, maybe needs to be relocated, it's the exact same ConOps from that perspective. You're either taken out of the trunk and installed to this location or moved over there. So it just simply provides additional optional FRAM locations that are currently available on station. And it seems that should have a lot of value there, and then we're hopeful that'll be recognized, and it's primarily on the government side. But that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, and so we have actually 2 more questions. The first one is that power continuous? And I don't know if that's in the same vein of not being able to answer on the fly.
No, that one is yes, it's continuous power.
All right, and then we might need to clarify this a little bit, Bill. Is NanoRacks the only carrier serving the platform? And then a second part of that, and how many times a year can the facility be accessed?
So the latter is every 3 months. We have cargo resupply flights typically going to station, so that could be every 3 months you could potentially launch and go to the platform. As far as the NanoRacks, can you say that one again? NanoRacks doesn't serve.
Right. I think that this is just a clarification. Is NanoRacks the only carrier serving the platform.
No, NanoRacks has nothing to do with this platform. We manufactured the NanoRacks NREP that's up there on station. But
yeah, I may have confused that with my comments earlier, and I apologize. So yeah, as Bill said, we were basically NanoRacks Prime for the NREP, which is mounted on the GEM external facility, or the
Right.
But there's no connection between NanoRacks and that platform and us and Bartolomeo. They're two separate capabilities, two separate options.
The view of your field of view that the camp analysis, NASA camp analysis team did for us, we just picked one slot and showed both the nadir and zenith slot of view from 3, and you can see, the various things that might be in your field of view. The blue indicates where the sweeping of the solar arrays do come through your view at various times, and you can see, an HTV and a Dragon when they are there, or the CST 100. And then again, the stoplight chart over on the right hand side kind of shows which slot has which type of viewing capability. And then again, this is just kind of a pictorial of the way the comm system works. We're just using TDRS right now as our primary mode of comms and for the payloads and the platform. But again, the plan is Q1 of 25, we should have an operational optical comm system in place for the big data users. And so right now, currently, we have 2 options depending on the size of the payload. Our primary mode of getting the payloads out or back in is through the GEM airlock, and as this photograph shows. And then we do have the capability of using the Bishop airlock that NanoRacks also owns. And here's just a small sampling of some of the types of use cases that people have contacted us and discussed with us, and current customers and potential customers is what we're trying to get across here. And that, again, every 3 months we can take a payload up and back, and or take it up. We typically like to stay, our sorties are a year and can be longer. We've got some that plan to be there for the life of the station that are about to launch. So that's next.
And Bill, before we move to the next one, another question: can a payload be installed on Bartolomeo through the GEM airlock, the NanoRacks airlock, or strictly from an external vehicle with SSRMS?
No, right now, currently, it's through the GEM or the Bishop airlock. However, if you do have a hard-mounted payload in the trunk, we can install it from that trunk using the FRAM adapter capability that we have. So we can hit all 3.
Great.
And here I just wanted to throw in a couple slides of hardware on the Argus. This is the SEN-TV that is about to be launched in March. We turn it over in just a few days. This is just a fit check on the Argus plate, and I think the next one is also next slide is the Argus in the flight configuration, getting it into the foam over at Cargo Mission Contract. You can see this has got no payloads on it at this time, and then you can see the goal connector that's attached to it. And payloads again will be attached by the crew members once all of it's on orbit, and then taken out through the GEM. This one will go out the GEM airlock, grabbed by the arm and placed into, I think, slot 2, right, Chris?
All right. Well, we've been asking questions as we've been going along. Does anybody have anything more they want to put in the chat? Please do it. And while you're doing that, Chris or Bill, can you guys talk a little bit more about that cradle to grave offering of not just Bartolomeo as sort of a test bed and test space qualification platform, but what about that transition and that full-fledged of offering that Airbus US has with other operational assets?
Sure, I'll say a word or two on that. So, one of the things we've looked at is the ability, well, we back up a little bit, some of our customers have looked at wanting to do space qualification, and typically that's in support of a broader objective. So if that ends up being a free flyer or a constellation, we have the capability under the Airbus umbrella to be able to take you through the Bartolomeo space qualification TRL raising steps, and then transition to a free flyer platform based on our Aero 150, which is the basic bus configuration used in the OneWeb satellite constellation. And then there's development of our Aero 450, which is a larger version of that, right? That those numbers correspond with payload size, right? So 450 kilogram size platforms. And that seems like that could be a interesting way to go about this, being able to maintain, that same umbrella as you go from testing to the next step. So you don't end up in those situations where you weren't aware of your ultimate platform requirements and have to re-engineer or re-qualify. So we have a facility in Florida that's was the OneWeb facility. We're expanding that to actually have 2 product lines, two assembly lines to crank these out at I don't remember the rate of how many per day, but that's just a kind of I guess a unique offering where we can kind of take you from the early stages into an operational phase beyond space station itself.
Great. And we're going to talk a little bit about semiconductors in a second, but in terms of the operational questions, how much money in order of magnitude do I need to raise in order to use your platform? And then where is the ICD, and are these slides available?
Well, these slides are certainly available, and we can get an ICD to you without too much fuss. As far as cost, that's all based on the size, really, of your payload. That's how we, a 6U payload for a year's operation with all the services, taking you through the whole thing and operations for a year is $660K. So, and then going upwards, depending again on the size of the payload. We can certainly talk individual payloads offline without any issues.
Yeah, and I'll add just again, going back to those options and flexibility, we have the standard Argus where we can do up to 5 different size payloads, and that platform carries its own avionics and does its own power and data management off of a single slot on Bartolomeo. We also have an offering which we call our Argus Max, which would use one of those dual slot payloads, the one where Bill was talking about being able to daisy chain. We can use an Argus without the avionics and host 2 relatively large size, 120U-ish type size payloads, and each of those have a standard power data connection into the Gold 2 as we would on a standard on a single slot payload. So you have divisions of up to 5, divisions of 2, then single size payloads. So there's a lot of flexibility within all that. And then they teach those, the sizes. We use U as kind of a reference, so we have a common language to talk size in terms of relativity, but it does come down to size, complexity, those attributes.
So Chris, I think you just answered, is one of the questions was, is there a standardized cost for allocation of payload in CubeSat units or in kilograms? So I think you just just covered that. Does the $660K include launch cost?
Yes, it does.
What a bargain. Wow, did everyone
Right.
just hear that?
Is that a question or a statement?
All right, and so we also got a question on, you mentioned something on semiconductor manufacturing, and can you elaborate? And, I think I'll start and then feel free, Chris or Bill, to jump in. But, we've been talking a lot about the multi-uses of this Bartolomeo platform, and one being in the ability to outsource. Because again, we talked about the external facilities being oversubscribed. We know the internal facilities of the ISS are subscribed. We also know that semiconductors, in terms of in-space activity, have been needing longer processing times in orbit, higher power, the reduction of vibrations, and those types of things. And we know that there's limitations with high temp furnaces, like the LGF and SUBSA really can't get to the high enough temperatures for long enough durations. And the sample sizes are small. So we've been looking collectively at this. We know that sort of in-space, in-SPA focus areas, a lot of it is on some of these advanced material substrates related to semiconductors. And what we've been trying to look at, especially in light of safety concerns with internal high temp activity, is how could we use a Bartolomeo platform in this type of creative in this type of creative way. So ongoing discussions on that, ongoing analysis, and for those of you that are on this call that are interested, we would love to continue conversations with you on better understanding your needs and what could a solution look like using the Bartolomeo platform to move the whole semiconductor research on the ISS forward. So Chris and Bill, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
I don't. I think you said it quite well. Thank you.
What I would say, just to elaborate on it, I think you covered everything, is that, to me, ultimately, a viable way to do this would probably be a, robotic free flyer that does, silicates and chip activities ultimately down the line. But early on, I think one of the keys, and I keep going back to this all the time, is proving out feasibility and scalability. So I think those are some things we could do with some of the current technology, some of the current hardware, configure those in a way to be able to get external and then operate these and show to the people that may be bringing more money to the chips market, and looking at this as an option for production capabilities or efficiencies, that there is scalability and feasibility in this type of approach. So it's kind of still in the R&D-ish type phase, but taking it one step further, in my opinion.
Yeah, and we just got a request for a separate call just on semiconductors, and I would suggest that wouldn't be a webinar. That would be more of like a meeting where we could actually, hear from you what your interest points are, where you're going. We've reviewed a lot of the information, the great work that was done at the Stanford conference. We've had numerous discussions within SPA. So we would, like, I'm speaking for you, Chris and Bill, I think we would be very happy to have a separate call just on semiconductors. So again, we can move the ball forward on it.
Absolutely.
All right, good. Another question, are there benefits to using one type of contract structure versus others in terms of savings? Like if it's ISS National Lab sponsored on CRS, would launch cost or should they be minimal or nil? So contract structure.
Well, I guess there is no real benefit one way or the other. The launch cost is built into our price model. So the only benefit is, if you are a federal agency, really, is if you're needing a contract vehicle, we've got a IDIQ already in place, so we don't have to jump through all those hoops to create a contract vehicle, and we just put a task order on it.
Basically, these have been amazing questions. And I think we can wrap it up if nobody else has anything burning left to say.
I'll end with, please feel free to reach out if any other questions should come to mind, and we'll get this information out there so you can peruse it, and hopefully that'll stimulate some further thoughts.